Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1, where we're covering another fantastic week of F2 racing, where yet again F2 proves it's one of the best racing series on the planet, with their racing again here in Belgium. So firstly, make sure you subscribe, that's the rules. But secondly, let's just get into it with the sprint race that happened yesterday. Deruva on pole with Pourchaire alongside. In terms of our championship contenders, we've got Pourchaire in 6th, Vesti in 9th, and Iwasa in 16th. Josh Mason is a new starter on the F2 grid, his first weekend this week, and it wasn't a great one. It didn't start well for him on the sprint, where he stalled on the grid and had to start from the pit lane. All drivers were starting on the dry tyres, Miney on the softs, the rest on the mediums. The start then gets aborted because Mason got a jump start and went round, so he had to go round again, and then he went into pit lane. I don't really know what happened there. Vesti, though, makes a good move round the outside of Hauger for P6 on lap 1. And then Vesti also passing Boschong on the Camel Straight for P5. Great start for Frederick Vesti, the championship leader at that time. Deruva pits from the lead and retires the car on lap 3 in one of the freakiest accidents I've ever seen. Not even accidents, incidents maybe? I don't even know. But his headrest just came loose. He was driving around and the headrest, which goes round the back of his head and down the side, is just clipped onto the halo, hanging on. As he goes around the corner, it flies off. He has to retire the car for safety reasons. They released a statement later on saying that it was in properly, it's just one of the bolts came away. It was unbelievable. I've never seen anything like that happen in my life. I think at one point, maybe Lewis Hamilton had something where he had to keep on pushing it down as he was driving around, but I've never seen it fully fly off before, especially like on lap 3. It was like it was on, then it was gone. So that is mental for Deruva, who was leading the race, had a good chance of winning this race, all thrown away. Completely freak incident there. Unbelievable stuff. Josh Mason got a penalty for a starting procedure infringement. That was a 5-second, I think. Cordial spins and stalls the car. This brings out the safety car. Richard Verschoor now leading the race. Safety car ends on lap 5, and the top 5 at that time was Verschoor from Fittipaldi, from Pourchaire, from Vesti, from Hauger. Miney says that it's starting to rain. Hauger gets past Vesti for P4, that's on lap 5 of 17. We got Iwasa and Behrman going wheel to wheel. That was some great racing from both guys. Iwasa gets past for P10. Miney pits for the mediums. He started on the softs. It just didn't work for him at all, so he had to pit for the mediums, ruined his race there. Iwasa now up to 9th, passing Maloney, and then Doohan passes Boschong for P7. Boschong started at a very high P4, and then kind of just went backwards from there. Hauger versus Pourchaire, that kicks off for P3, and at the exact same time, Vesti versus Martins kicks off for P5, where Vesti and Martins are side by side for about 4 corners on lap 12. Leclerc hits Behrman. Behrman goes through the gravel and loses 2 places. That's on lap 14. And Martins finally gets past Vesti for P5 on lap 14 as well. Verschoor versus Fittipaldi kicks off for P1 with 3 laps to go. Great racing from both guys. But Enzo Fittipaldi takes the lead on lap 16 of 17. And then Doohan gets past Vesti for P6 on lap 17 of 17. And the final scores on the doors for the sprint race, Enzo Fittipaldi wins from Verschoor, from Pourchaire. Great win from Enzo Fittipaldi. I think it was his first ever F2 win. Well deserved, great racing from him. It was Vesti versus Iwasa on the line, and I'm pretty sure Vesti overtook off the track. But you know, they never came back and said anything about this, and with everything going on all the time in F2 and penalties being handed out all the time, I would have thought I would have heard something about this, but apparently Vesti got away with it. Richard Verschoor would be disqualified from the race for, it was like a starting clutch thing was wrong or illegal or something, but yeah, he was P2. He was then disqualified, so unlucky for him. Pourchaire goes up to P2. On to the F2 feature race, and we start with Oliver Behrman on pole position. Now, this was a really interesting qualifying session where it started dry, then instantly got wet. So it was basically whoever set a lap time first got pole position. The person who set a lap time first was Vesti, but Behrman was right behind him and went a little bit quicker to take pole. So it was really a battle between the two of them to take pole, everyone else just filing in wherever they could. So it was Behrman on pole from Vesti, but Vesti is out of the race before it even begins. He spins on the Kemmel Straight on the reconnaissance lap, and can't get his car going again. He's out of the race. Unbelievable stuff. In terms of our championship protagonists then, Vesti out, Pourchaire 5th, Iwasa 16th. Behrman gets away well here, but it was Pourchaire who got the best start, going from 5th to 2nd on the straight. Iwasa then hits Hauger, and Hauger is out of the race. This brings out the safety car. Iwasa has broken suspension, comes into the pit lane, and he is out of the race. But then somehow Hauger is back in the race. It seems the marshals had given him a push start, and Hauger is back in the F2 sprint race. Maloney and Fittipaldi hit on the restart. Maloney went down from P3 to P5. That's on lap 4. Leclerc has a huge spin up Eau Rouge. Very lucky he didn't hit anyone or anything, but did get a puncture. Then we start Behrman versus Pourchaire for P1. On one of the first attempts, Behrman blocks him off. On the second attempt, they're side by side, both lock up, both miss the corner, and then just carry on going through. This round is revealed. Hauger, who was out of the race, then was back in the race, is now out of the race again, as he has been disqualified because apparently he got a push start from the marshals to get him back into the race. Apparently this is not allowed, and he's been disqualified from the race. I think that's unfair. It looked pretty safe how they did it. I don't think anyone could have been harmed, and, it's just good racing. I think that rule needs to be taken a little bit of a look at, really, because they said it's to protect the marshals, but in that specific scenario, I think the marshals were very safe. The cars were nowhere near. I think the rule needs to be looked at. Maybe not all push starts are disqualifications, but if you instruct a marshal to push start your car in an unsafe place, maybe that's a disqualification, because I don't think this really deserved a disqualification. Behrman, though, is still fighting against Pourchaire, showing off some great defensive driving and some great attacking driving from Theo Pourchaire. There's a fantastic overtake for Doohan on Isaac Hadjar. The corner is apparently called the Piff Path. I didn't know it's called the Piff Path. It's just for the full sector 3. It's like a little chicane. Piff Path. And he went round there. You don't see many overtakes there, so great stuff there. Penalty, 10 seconds for Nissani for causing a collision. Isaac Hadjar crashes into the wall coming out of the pit lane and loses his front wing. This brings out the virtual safety car. It was really mad stuff here. At the end of the pit lane, there was 2 incidents where there was 2 cars that kind of just lost traction. I can't remember who the first one was, but they came in, lost traction, didn't hit the wall, went over the white line and got a penalty. And then it was Isaac Hadjar. He kind of came out of the pit lane, lost traction, went right into the wall and lost his front wing. Deruvala is fighting Maloney, and he goes off. And then we have Behrman and Pourchaire pit from the lead on lap 15, where Pourchaire comes out in front of Ollie Behrman. Fittipaldi also pits at the lap after he inherited the lead, and he comes out behind Pourchaire, but in front of Behrman and Victor Martins. But Behrman and Victor Martins have the speed on the fresh tyres, and we're able to get back past him again. We get a 5-second penalty for Victor Martins for speeding in the pit lane. Then Correa hits Crawford, and Crawford is out. This brings out the safety car. This is a very important safety car because Jack Doohan, who was on the alternative strategy, is now able to pit, and he comes out in 2nd place, just behind Theo Pourchaire. Now, Mason, our favourite guy, he spins behind the safety car. It's just been announced the safety car is coming in, and he has a big spin to celebrate. This extends the safety car period by 1 lap. And with 5 laps to go, the safety car comes in. Theo Pourchaire leads from Jack Doohan, but Doohan is on the faster tyres, Behrman in 3rd. And we have Pourchaire versus Doohan for the lead, and this is fantastic racing from both guys here. Martins gets past Behrman, but then goes off and doesn't give the place back. Now, I thought he would have to give the place back. He doesn't, and doesn't receive a penalty either, so I guess that's just fine. But up front, Doohan takes the lead. They nearly collide. It was so close to both of them going completely out, because Pourchaire cuts back and tries to get him, but Doohan defends off, and it is Doohan taking the lead. And on the last lap, we have an incredibly fast overtake. Enzo Fittipaldi on Zane Maloney. This is for P5 on the final lap. Then as we cross the line, Jack Doohan takes his second feature race victory in a row. Theo Pourchaire comes home in second and is the brand new championship leader. Then we have a few penalties. Victor Martins had the 5-second penalty for speeding the pit lane. Ollie Behrman got given a 5-second penalty for a collision with Victor Martins at the end of the race, which I don't think was very fair. But that does mean that Enzo Fittipaldi takes third place, Zane Maloney fourth, Victor Martins fifth, Richard Verschoor in sixth. Ollie Behrman has to settle for seventh place after a race that he realistically could have won. Eighth is Kush Maini, Roman Stanek is ninth, then Ralph Boscham gets a point in 10th place. Fantastic race yet again for the F2. They always deliver. They'll be back after the summer break. I really cannot wait. This championship is really heating up. You know, you've got Pourchaire now leading. Vesti isn't too far behind. Iwasa still in it. Maybe Doohan is in it now. Doohan isn't too far off the back of Iwasa. And that's the kind of way that F2 goes. One good weekend and you're in like the back of the championship race. So it could go anyway at the minute. As for star of F2 this weekend, I'm going to give it to Enzo Fittipaldi. I thought he did great in both races, winning the feature, won the sprint, getting a podium in the feature, but demonstrating some great racing as well. Great stuff all around though, and I can't wait for it to be back because F2 is the best. Let me know your thoughts on the F2 this weekend, and as always, make sure you subscribe to the channel because we still have got the F1 to come up today. Then we'll have the F1 driver ratings on Monday and also the Hungary travel vlog thing on Tuesday. So that's all the fun of the fair. I'll see you there. Until next time, goodbye.